I'm not sure if Scott wants me to tell this, but as an amputee, as his prosthetist, I can tell you that he's someone who likes to swim in chlorine and in saltwater pools on about a daily basis.
That's why I said I hope so.
And when we do his yearly inspection, he has a protective cover on his, which unfortunately also works as a barrier to trap moisture inside. Mm-hmm. So when we do inspect his on an annual basis, it typically is pretty damaged from corrosion. But yep. Scott's not a small guy, and he runs on his prosthesis regularly. He's very active, and he doesn't have a problem with breaking things typically.
I am the living example that if it can. We've taken apart my feet where they have literally had almost holes corroded all the way through in different
areas.
The
bolts. Now the carbon fiber is all perfectly intact, but the bolts that are used to secure everything and hold them together are in...
They're starting to corrode.
Pretty scary shape.
Yeah.
Pretty scary shape. Scott, don't run on that, please.
Yeah.
Another thing is a lot of people now have electronic components that are part of their prosthesis. The majority of electronic components now are at least water resistant, where it's okay to have them if they are exposed to a mud puddle or a rain puddle, or if they get wet from spilling a drink on them, things of that nature. They do work up to being submergible for small amounts of time without causing danger, all the way to waterproof. Some of the microprocessor knee components specifically are rated as waterproof. They can be submerged and used for swimming and wading in the water, that type of thing.
So these are all things that have to be considered. If you know you're going to be in the water and you're going to be doing water activities, you need to have a lot of communication with your prosthetist about that. The type of insurance that you have would dictate whether you can get an aquatic prosthetic limb that you can use for these activities, or do we have to build you one primary prosthetic limb that we can do these water activities in? And the selection of those components is going to be very important based on what those needs are and how many prosthetic limbs you can get and what you're using the prosthesis for.
Right. So the big take-home message with can I get my prosthesis wet is, as long as you have good communication with your prosthetist and it's part of the design, absolutely, there should be no barriers to getting in the water, using your prosthesis around the water. These are things that shouldn't be a concern for you, so go get it. Right. I was just working with someone who's a newer amputee, and we were working on her definitive prosthesis, and we were right at the end. Everything was fit, everything was aligned. We were ready to finish, and she looked at me and she said, I know I can't get in the water now. Going to water parks was always my thing. That was the thing that I loved doing. And I looked at her and I said, well, this is the nick of time because it's not too late. So we were able to change her design. Even though it was right at the end, we still hadn't locked into anything. So we were able to change her design. We were able to get her something that she could use in the water. And now she's been to Myrtle Beach. She goes to the water parks. She's doing these things. And I'm glad we had that communication. So that's the big take home is make sure that you mentioned how important getting in the water is to you.
One of the things where we want to make sure that people understand you can have an active lifestyle in the water. When I lost my leg, one of the main things I wanted to do was water ski again. So I'm in and out of the water all of the time. When we do the triathlons that we like to do, or the whole purpose of that with the prosthetics is showing the different components, that is to show people that you can get in the, one of the things that we do in the triathlon is you get in the water and swim. And we want people to visually see that. So if you just lost a limb, you may not have this conception, which we unfortunately find most people do, like you were saying, oh, I guess I'm just not allowed to get in the water. So again, the triathlon is one of the ways we tried to dispel that. Because if you're a person who likes to be near water and it's very important to you, the whole point of when you lose a prosthetic limb, these are the things that make us feel whole again, getting back to the activities and the things that we like to do. So if you can functionally do it after losing a limb, the idea is to custom design a prosthesis that allows you to do the activities that you love to do.
Now, Scott, you mentioned triathlon, so I know that in order to train for triathlon swimming, you have to do lap swimming, right?
Yes.
Now when you lap swim, how do you prefer to do it? Do you use your prosthesis for that, or?
Well, you're bringing up something that is a nice segue into some of the things that you have to consider, because people would say you just lost your leg, and the first time that you're going to go swimming is you want to get in the pool. If I have an opportunity to go lap swimming and I'm doing it in the pool, a lot of times I will just take my prosthesis off, but you can sit on the ledge, you can safely get in and out of the water.
Right.
And sometimes with the prosthesis, because I'm kicking my legs so much, I may not want that extra movement. So it's maybe more comfortable for me to swim without the prosthetic limb. When we're doing a lot of the triathlons, obviously you got to run into the water and get out of the water and get to different staging areas. So depending where I'm at with the training, that's a perfect example where I'm going to train now with my leg on but again, everyone isn't going to necessarily be doing a triathlon. So if you're saying to your prosthetist, I want to swim, well, it's a big difference whether you're going to be swimming in a pool in your backyard or if you're going to be swimming in lakes where you would be at a beach,
boat or
climbing off a boat, getting in the
right.
boat, walking from beaches that gradually gets deeper out there. So these are all very important factors.
Right. And even for the lap swimming, I work with someone who's a bilateral below the knee amputee who does lap swimming now. He likes to wear his prostheses for swimming because without them, he can't touch the bottom. Mm-hmm. And so even though the water kind of suspends you, it keeps you more upright. So you don't find a problem with standing in balance on one.
No, because here's what I really love about being in the water, and I like to encourage people to get in the water if that's something they're comfortable doing, because especially if you're in the early stages, the buoyancy in the water is something that really helps. Something that you'll hear us talk about multiple times is the muscle atrophy that we experience after we have limb loss. Muscle atrophy can be anywhere between 7 and 10% of losing your muscle volume in a week. So one of the big obstacles we're climbing, if you've been 3, 4, 5, 6 months, a year without ambulating on that side, our muscles are very weak. So we're spending our time trying to build the strength up. The first time I was able to stand in a swimming pool, and I didn't work in the medical field, so I didn't really understand how that worked. But all I noticed was that when I was standing with my prosthesis, I didn't take a lot of effort for me to stand up straight, and I could walk in the swimming pool without an assistive device and fire the muscles that I needed to fire because that buoyancy was working like an assistive device. So to answer your question, it's very easy to stand on one leg, but it's also very easy for if you're new to wearing a prosthesis, it is a good experience to just kind of get in the swimming pool, walk around, and water therapy is great for new prosthetic users for that reason.
And again, when you hurt your plantar fascia, a lot of your recovery for that, he was running regularly, doing those things, and that impact was. I mean, it was an overuse injury. It's something that happens to a lot of runners.
You know you have a good prosthetist when he remembers more about your activities than you do. But he's like, I'm the guy that's got to fix it. When it
right.
But yeah, well, when I do injure myself, which unfortunately, just because I'm older, it does happen, I usually go right back to water therapy because it's great for muscle recovery and that type of thing. But again, I can still continue.
Impact, right?
It lowers the impact.
So when he was running, obviously running is a high impact activity. He hurt his plantar fascia and.
Well, the thing is, we had our race in July, and this happened the early part of June.
Right.
So you couldn't say, hey, I'm going to lay myself up for 2 months because that would have been like starting over again. So, we started that training cycle in December, I think, of the previous year. Yeah. So, you can't just kind of throw it in the bag for 4 weeks while you're healing. So we were able to continue to maintain the muscle strength and continue to strengthen by training in the water and reducing the impact.
Right.
Yeah.
So we really encourage using your prosthesis in and around the water because it's a lot of fun and it has a lot of benefits.
Yes. So if you're thinking about getting back into the water and you haven't done it, check with some of your local therapy places. If they do water therapy, aqua therapy, that would be great.
Right.
If you could start on the shallow end of a swimming pool, I think you'll find that you can get comfortable relatively quick. But the nice thing about a lake, if you're walking right into the water, is you can control how deep that you're going. The call to action here would be, if you want to get back in the water, the sooner you do it, I think the easier it's going to be to overcome that obstacle.
Right, and don't be afraid to reach out with questions, comment on the post, and we'd be happy to hear from you.
And, talk to your prosthetist again. I mean, Nate, you had mentioned earlier about having a bilateral who likes to have both of the legs on. There are different feet that articulate that can help you. Again, anytime we do activities with a prosthetic limb, we're learning to adapt to our new normal. So just, I would like to note that if it seems a little difficult or doesn't feel like it did before, we're going to find ways to adapt and just keep doing it until you find a new normal for yourself and you're enjoying your time in the water.